Alright, talking about Jackie Boy in this video. Not a very interesting character though, at least not on the surface from what we've seen. Maybe Oda's gonna spin it later on and we're gonna get way more complexities and different layers to Jack's character, but from right now, from what we've seen, pretty standard fare for most anime and manga, not really much to talk about there. In fact, I could do Jack's character right now, it's not that hard. Are you ready? Okay, here's Jack's character. I'm a badass because I'm big and strong, and I'm gonna walk in. I don't need no goddamn plans or tactics. I'm just gonna stampede into the town, wreck their shit, take their treasure because I'm Jack. I'm strong. Yeah, that's pretty much what you got right there. Doesn't think of stuff beforehand, doesn't think of plans or anything like that. Treats his subordinates like garbage, just acts like an overpowered musclehead because he's, admittedly he is strong, but sometimes you gotta stand back and think about stuff to do. An example of this is, alright guys, let's go rescue Doflamingo. Well, sir, his convoy is guarded by a former fleet admiral, a current admiral, and one of the most senior members of the Marines, also known as the Great Tactician, which would probably cause a lot of trouble. I don't give a fuck, I'm Jack, let's go rescue him. Got the shit beat out of him. Then, next plan, he's like, alright guys, let's go and get back that giant elephant. Fuck, let's just knock the thing down. Hey, maybe that elephant could attack us, and if that thing swings its trunk at us, it would wreck our entire... Nah, fuck it, I'm Jack! Come on, guys, let's just get this shit done. Yeah, so that's Jack's character right there. But what is interesting about Jack, not so much his character, is all the things that are swirling around Jack right now, all the different, theories and whatnot. Also swirling around Jack right now are the wrecked remains of his boat and the waterlogged members of his corpses, of his crew members. Yeah, that's also what's swirling around Jack right now. But not him, he's not dead yet. No, okay. So after he got his shit wrecked by Zunisha, after Momonosuke controlled Zunisha and ordered him to send Jack out. Jack's entire fleet got wrecked. All of the members of his crew also apparently got wiped out. And Jack is left right now at the bottom of the ocean in the wreckage, and he's not dead. That's the crazy thing. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about here, exactly what the species of Jack is. And to me, it seems fairly obvious. He's half fishman. I'm not going to go the full fishman route with it yet, because from what we've seen with Jack, the only thing, granted, he wears a lot of heavy, armor and shit, and like the shoulder guards, and he had the mask and stuff like that. But from what we've seen, most fishmen, at least their skin's going to be differently colored or something like that. And this makes sense that he would be a half fishman, because just before this, we got introduced to Derringer during the Dressrosa arc, which introduced the concept of half-human, half-fishman hybrids existing. So in Derringer's case, what do we have? Well, we have the standard human, skin tone. Along with that, his body doesn't seem all that different. Like, he doesn't have a lot of crazy gills or anything. Granted, his body's covered by that onesie skin-tight suit he wears. Kind of makes him look like a giraffe a little bit. But he has some fishy features, such as his teeth and his eyes are a little crazy, and the horns, of course. Well, look at Jack here. Jack, of course, has the jagged teeth, which would be very similar of a fishman. And then he has his horns, right? And his horns, from the way they look here, they don't look like actual horns. They look like decoration, like they're just attached to his head. Now, people have actually hypothesized that Jack is part of, some other, race that hasn't been introduced yet in the story. He's part of, the horned race, or the Oni race, or the demon race. However you want to look at this. I don't really look at it that way yet. Simply because from what we've had, the structure of Kaido's crew, how Kaido is based upon. Now, Kaido himself is interesting, and I've already done a discussion about him, where he might be some sort of, extra species demon creature, but I think it's more of just a sign of rank in Kaido's crew, in the Beast Pirates, because if you actually look at the other members of his crew, some of them, they all have horns on their heads. Some of them only have one horns on their heads, as with the case with the Pleasures. And then when we get to the Gifters, the ones that have the artificial devil fruit powers, the Smiles attached to them, they all have two horns. And then Kaido himself has the really big horns. And then you have Jack, who is a calamity, one of the three calamities on Jack's crew, who has the really prominent horns that look more similar to Kaido's horns. So I'm going to say the horns in Kaido's crew are more of just like a symbol of rank, with perhaps Kaido having the actual horns that are like part of him. And that would make more sense to Kaido, given the fact that he's apparently, unkillable. This incredibly, durable guy. So I would understand maybe he's part of another race that we haven't seen yet. But I don't think it's the case for every member of the crew. I think it's the case of Jack just, having a very high rank in the crew. That's why he's got the horns on his head. But he is most certainly half fishman. Now, I have to pause here, and I have to talk once again about devil fruit weaknesses. I made a whole video about this. Made two, really. But there's still people that are a little confused by this. And you know what? Admittedly, it is a little bit scattershotted. I would prefer if Oda came out, and I mean, he's already mentioned this stuff in SBSs before, but I really wish that maybe when we get to Vegapunk at some point, that Oda's just gonna lay out all the weaknesses of devil fruits. So I'm going to repeat this again, and it's already in the SBSs, so you can look it up on the One Piece Wiki. It's up there. The translations and everything, they're there. But here are the basic rules of devil fruits, weaknesses, okay? Devil fruit users get weakened by any type of water as long as it's above a certain point on their bodies, okay? Just accept that right away. I know I don't want to be like the teacher here, like, come on, kids, you need to understand this. But seriously, some people still... No, Matt, it's only seawater. No. It's any type of water. It could be fresh water or seawater. The thing that matters is how much of it is actually covering the devil fruit user. If it's only like up to their knees or below that, not a big deal. If it's rain or if it's water from like a shower or something, not a big deal. But if it starts covering up their body, they start to get weaker. They start to not being able to move as much. Now, the seawater does not actually kill you, and it does not actually take away your devil fruit ability. We know this because whenever Luffy got submerged in the pool back in Arlong Park, also an arc that had to deal with fishmen, just how that worked out, Luffy's devil fruit ability was still active. He could still stretch. It's just that the power of the sea zaps him physically. He can't move that well. The way Oda put it was they could struggle a little bit. They could maybe move around a little, but it wouldn't help them very much. Now, of course, if you're a normal human, though, if you're stuck under the water and you can't move too well and your whole body's kind of like going numb, you won't be able to swim and you won't be able to breathe because you're underwater, so you'd eventually drown, okay? But in Luffy's case, they were able to stretch his neck so he could breathe that way. It doesn't actually take away the devil fruit ability, and it doesn't actually kill you of it in itself. Drowning is what actually kills you. So in Jack's case here, he ate the devil fruit, the ancient version of the Zozo fruit. So he ate the Zozo fruit model mammoth, allowing him to turn him into a woolly mammoth. Okay, pretty badass, but that's a devil fruit user. Okay, so he gets knocked into the water, so just like everything else, the water zaps his energy, so he can't move around very much. He can't swim up to the surface himself, but he's stuck at the bottom here, and because he has a half-fishman trait, he can breathe underwater. So this is kind of the worst situation you could possibly imagine, really, in the situation with devil fruit users and the species that consumes them. It's kind of the same thing that would happen with Vanderdecken. Vanderdecken was a pure fishman that consumed the Mato Mato no Mi, also having a title for possibly being one of the worst devil fruits you could ever consume. But being a fishman meant that, he couldn't take one of the most, the biggest advantages of his species. But here we have Jack, who can breathe underwater, so he's still alive. He just can't move. So he's trapped underwater in the wreckage of his ship, just kind of like waiting for people to show up. Now, he's not concerned about dying in this situation. He's not sitting down there like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? He seemed rather more annoyed by it than anything. Like, oh my god, come on, somebody just pull me up. It's fucking boring as shit down here. So I assume maybe Jack could eat fish to stay alive if fish were stupid enough to swim up to his mouth, which actually does happen in the anime, I think, But if that's not the case and you're just stuck underwater, I mean, you would die eventually if you don't eat food or anything, but Jack seems like a pretty nutritious guy. He's got a lot of meat on them bones, so it's probably going to be a while until that happens. But yeah, Jack, he's probably going to be rescued at some point. I'm not sure by who, and I'm not sure if they would even know he's down there. Maybe somebody with really adept observation hockey. If they have somebody really like that on Kaido's crew, they'd be able to locate him. With observation. It might actually be one of the other calamities, now that I'm actually thinking about it. That would make sense, like one of the other calamities going to rescue Jack. I can't imagine they would get around very well, because Kaido's crew seems to be like, the kind of crew that's like, the stronger you are, the higher up on the pecking order you are, therefore, it's not a lot about camaraderie, it's more about just listening to the people that are stronger than you. It seems like that kind of like barbaric sort of setup. let's talk about the other calamities while we're here. We don't really know anything about them at all. We know that there's 3 of them on the Kaido's crew, the Beast Pirates, and Jack was the Drought, so they all have titles like that are actual calamities. If you look at other calamities, I would assume there would be another one named the Flood, if we're just going with basic, natural disasters that occur in the world. The Drought, of course, a lot of sun, so all the plants dry up and you don't have any vegetation, so that's the case. And he got that title because he's a woolly mammoth, so he just goes stomp, 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 and just, wrecks people's lands and destroys all the crops and shit, so he's the Drought. I would assume the Flood would be one. The Flood is another natural disaster that's pretty serious, pretty prominent in the world. And then we have the last one, which I believe is either going to be like the cyclone or the hurricane, or going with the wind aspect of it, or maybe like the wildfire or something like that. I prefer the cyclone or the hurricane because that sounds a little bit more intimidating. Like, here's one of the calamities, the cyclone. Like, oh shit. They're like professional wrestlers. Like, here comes Jack the Drought, So I would assume those are the titles of the other ones. Like I said, the actual abilities are not, they don't sync up perfectly. Like Jack the Drought, when I hear Drought, I would immediately think he has like a heat or a fire-based ability or something like that, but that's not the case. He's just, a pretty giant, mammoth that goes stomping, and that's how he accomplishes that calamity. So the other ones might not have the exact same ability, but yeah, there might be something along the lines like that, named after natural disasters. That's what we're going with here. That is the case there. What would Jack do if he was rescued? Because it's interesting, Jack is the only One Piece antagonist, the only one, because he was the antagonist of the Zoark, where Luffy never actually fought, or the Straw Hats never even really had a direct confrontation with him, because the Straw Hats showed up, like Sanji and Chopper and Nami, they showed up after Jack had already left, fighting the remaining members of his pirate crew, like Sheep's Head and Gene Rummy. But then, Jack left, and then by the time Jack came back to Zou, he didn't even make it to the country, because Momonosuke talked to Zunisha, and Zunisha just wrecked his shit, and, that's the case there. So it's not really a situation where Jack has ever encountered Luffy. I would assume if Jack ever did get rescued, he would probably head on back to Kaido, right? I mean, maybe? I don't know if he would or not. I don't know if he would be like, oh, well, I failed in my mission, I got my ship wrecked, all my crew members died. I don't know if he would really want to go back to Jack in that situation. I'm trying to figure out a way that Jack could be reincorporated back in the plot, basically. Because Oda did not have to make him a half-fishman. Oda could have simply had him as a normal-ass human that died. And, got knocked in the water and he's dead. Now, Oda is not one to typically just depict, straight up, death. At least not in the present storyline of the story. But, yeah, I mean, he could have easily not made him a fishman. But I think that's the reason, Jack is half fishman, being able to breathe underwater. He's still alive. Oda's definitely gonna do something with it. I'm just trying to figure out what that is, what that something is. If Jack does get rescued and they get brought back to Wano Kuni, I mean, that would be pretty badass if the Straw Hats, like, after they get Sanji and everybody, they reunite on Wano Kuni, and then you have the full force of the Straw Hat pirates to fight against the full force of Kaido's pirate crew. But I think that might be a little bit too soon. Granted, you also have Kinemon and Kanjuro and Raizo and all the other members. I'm sure there's going to be other samurai and people on Wano that are going to want to help the fight against Kaido, as well as my theory that, Odin is still alive. And Kaido, and the Wano is situated like a Japanese, caste system, like the feudal Japan, system. So you have the daimos that are like nobility, and then after that you have the shogun, which is the bad guy. The shogun is allied with Kaido. But then after that you have the emperor. Now the emperor was usually just a figurehead. At least probably, originally they started out as having a lot of power, but then they got into the system where the emperor became a little bit more than just a figurehead. So he's probably going to just be a figurehead coming there, but I would imagine he would still have some relevance. If that's the case and Kaido's there and Luffy's going to fight him, not saying he would win, kind of the same thing with Big Mom. Not saying that Luffy's going to defeat Big Mom by the end of this arc, but, maybe achieve a moral victory over the bitch. I don't know. But yeah, I would imagine Luffy would maybe take on Kaido and then Zoro the Shogun or something like that, if that's where we're going. But then you throw the calamities in there, it's like a lot more shit. it seems like the Straw Hats are getting a little bit more into what they're bargaining for, unless they have a lot of help on Wano, unless they have like a lot of strong fighters that ally with them that we would be introduced to. Other than that, though, I don't really see Jack participating in Wano, and I also can't like really see the Calamities getting along with each other. Like, even if a Calamity like is like, oh, I don't see another member of Jack's crew like, well, let's go rescue Jack, you know, like I don't see that really. And Jack, like I said, kind of an idiot on the decisions he's made, right? So he will show up again in the story. I guarantee you that. It might not be in Wano. It might be like Jack seeking revenge later on. Like maybe after Wano Kuni's already been done, and maybe, cause Kaido really can't die, but he's been defeated like 12 or 13 times. Like, you know, Oda even specified that. Like, he's been captured by the Marines, he's been captured by other Yonko, he's been attempted to be executed. You could still beat him, it's just killing him is the thing that's fucking hard as shit. So, yeah, I can imagine maybe going through Wano, maybe achieving victory over Kaido in some way, and then later on down the line, Jack shows up and he's like, I'm gonna wreck you. I'm just throwing ideas out there, because where these Yonko battles are going, I mean, the name of this saga is Versing the Four Emperors, you know, and so another theory is that maybe they could get Big Mom and Kaido to fight against each other. That would be pretty cool to see anyway, to see that, like, confrontation. Because Luffy and the gang are not strong enough to, like, straight up take on Kaido and 3 Calamities and a Shogun. They're just not. And if they are, then that's something's wrong with that. If, like, maybe if they did it something like the Calamities, like if they get, like, like if Zoro and Frankie and Sanji all team up and they take out a Calamity, and then, I don't know, you know, like Brook and Kinemon and Law all team up and they take out a Calamity, that would be cool. I could like to see that. Like the Straw Hats, like, separating with the Samurai and taking on the Calamities. That would be pretty cool. And then the Shogun, of course, being the final battle, but then maybe Kaido leaving or something. I don't know about that. But that's talking more about Wano. I was talking more about, you know, Kaido and shit. I'm here to talk about Jack. I think I pretty much brought up everything. The fact that he has an ancient form of the Zozo no Mi, that was pretty cool. We don't get to see a lot of ancient devil fruits in the story, which brings up the idea, like, how exactly does one acquire an ancient zone fruit? I thought of a neat idea where they're actually fossils. They're like fossilized devil fruits that you can come across, and you have to use some sort of method to revive them, and maybe Vegapunk figured out this method, something like that. It would make sense for X-Drake or DS Drake, because he was a former Marine. So maybe he, like, you know, and he knew about Vegapunk's, you know, stuff, because when he saw, when X-Drake saw the Pacifistas, he was like, oh, Vegapunk, you've come this far. So he knew about Vegapunk, so maybe he, like, got the ancient form of the, like that. It's not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. They specified with the type of raptor or dinosaur it was, but I'm not really sure. I have a dinosaur book over here, so maybe I should look into that. But yeah, whatever ancient zone fruit that was, he stole from Vegapunk's lab or something, then he fled or something like that. So that's interesting there. But yeah, other than that, he's pretty strong. He's a pretty buff dude. Inuarashi and Nekomamushi were able to hold him off for a little while. But so it's not like he's ungodly strong. Those two were able to hold him off. But I think that's more of a testament to Inuarashi and Nekomamushi's power, because they were part of the Pirate King's crew for a time, so of course they would have a lot of strength. And it wasn't until Jack started playing dirty with Caesar's gas that he actually started to defeat the Minks. So other than that, it was a pretty good stalemate there. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about Jack. Talking about him still being alive underwater, him being a fishman, that whole demon thing, and then what do you guys think about him maybe coming back someday? You know, what he would do if that was the case, or is he just gonna stay underwater the rest of the story until he dies? You have just of, like, you know, malnutrition or something like that, or getting too much. I would imagine being submerged in salt water for a few days, weeks. I would imagine that would do something to your body. You know, your skin gets a little wrinkled underwater. You know, but he is a fisherman, half fisherman, so it probably wouldn't affect him all that much. But yeah, that pretty much is the situation with Jack. I would be very shocked if he was revealed to be anything other than half fisherman. But maybe he is, I don't know. Anyway, thanks you guys for watching the video. Thanks for giving me an idea of it today. I was doing a stream earlier, the Nuzlocke I did. And yeah, there was some ideas there on what to talk about. So thanks a lot for that. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Jack. My favorite Jack is Jack Harkness from Torchwood and Doctor Who, but that's just me. Okay, later, guys.